So Ja Morant got fined $75,000 from the NBA after doing this handgun gesture against the Miami Heat last night, because he already did that same handgun gesture against the Warriors earlier this week. And this fine, this $75,000 fine, I do think that there's an issue with it. Because although I believe that Ja Morant is in the wrong for doing the gesture after being explicitly told not to from the NBA, I also think the NBA deserves some blame for this too. But before we get into everything, what's good, guys? It's DemiM7. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. Hit that like and subscribe button. It would mean everything to me. So the fine is really what's kind of confusing here, because for anyone who may not know, the reason that Ja Morant got this specific fine was because he has had history, some problematic history involving guns. To briefly summarize it, basically a couple of years ago, Ja Morant flashed a gun on his IG Live where he got suspended, I think like 8 games or something like that. But then a couple of months later, he flashed a gun again in a completely different situation to where he got an even bigger suspension. There was no doubt that it was extremely problematic and extremely frustrating that it was Ja Morant doing this, because Ja Morant is one of the most popular players in the entire NBA. He's one of the most exciting players to watch. He makes watching the game fun. Basically, he just makes the NBA a better thing. But because of that fact, he also has millions upon millions of fans, people that love him and love his game. And for them to see him kind of, with this sort of sporadic sort of energy and attitude, especially when it comes to something like guns, yeah, it was a big problem. So now let's fast forward to this week where Ja Morant did the gun gesture with the Golden State Warriors.
Some form of gesture there. You can make that.
The problem was the NBA looked into the situation and ended up talking to Ja Morant. I'm assuming they told him that he just couldn't do that anymore. That is problematic. That's a problematic gesture to do. And Ja clearly did not care, because he did it 4 minutes into his Miami Heat game.
Mobility up and down the floor.
And that's where the fine comes from. I don't know if it comes from the celebration necessarily. In fact, I don't think it does, because we have seen other players do the celebration.
Turns to the bench and says, how you like that one?
But it's the fact that it was Ja Morant who did it. That's why the fine got put in place. Now, from that perspective, I don't blame the NBA for fining Ja, because again, they told him not to do it. He still did it. He has his past. I mean, it's basically Ja Morant biting the hand that feeds him. You don't do that. So on that level, I get it. However, the NBA is not perfect in this either, because over the course of NBA history, we've seen a lot of inappropriate gestures made when, something crazy, something hype happens, to which the NBA would ban some of those celebrations. Easily the best example of one of these banned celebrations is the Sam Cassell. That was just epic. It was hilarious. It's iconic, but it is banned. So for the NBA, you've seen other players doing this gun gesture, this gun celebration, aside from Ja Morant, to which I haven't seen anyone get fined. I haven't seen the NBA or Adam Silver make any statements whatsoever about the specific gesture at all. And that's where my problem is with the NBA on this. Again, it's Ja Morant, I can get it, but if other players are going to do it, because it's Ja Morant, it's going to be a problem? Just make this clear and simple for everybody. Ban any gun gesture celebrations in the NBA. Just ban it. Whatever the punishment that you would think is fair, go ahead and do it. If you want to fine them a bunch of money, fine them. If you want to suspend them a couple of games, suspend them. But there needs to be a clear line here. And look, I've made, I think, a video or two about Ja Morant after the suspension doing these kinds of celebrations. I thought it was a bad look for him, because it kind of showed that he didn't really learn from his mistakes. At least that was in my opinion. But at least with what's happening now, I don't think it falls completely on Ja here. His big mistake was still doing the celebration even after the NBA had told him, not to do it. Because I think with stuff like that, Ja Morant needs to take more time for some self-reflection and to be honest with himself. He is amazing, an amazing athlete, an amazing basketball player who is so mesmerizing to watch. But doing stuff like what he's been doing this week does give off a bad look. It gives off a bad impression as to what Ja may or may not have learned from those suspensions a couple of years ago. I would certainly hate to think that the guy hasn't learned anything from those past mistakes. That would just be sad. But all the NBA has to do is simply ban the celebration altogether, ban any celebration involving a handgun of any kind, and this pretty much gets wrapped under the rug and everyone is on the same page. But that's really all I have to say about it. Please let me know in the comments what you think about Ja Morant in this entire situation. And until next time, peace.